Hello coaches, welcome to a special episode of the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. For years on the intro we've had Lionel Messi with the commentary kicking off the podcast, but we've never done an episode talking about him, and I have never watched the great man live. So I'm here today for the World Club Cup in Atlanta, Georgia, in this unbelievable stadium to watch the main man, Lionel Messi. What's he like live? At this stage of his career, has he still got the magic? Of course he has. I've come here today straight from Charlotte, North Carolina. Yesterday I was at the Benfica and Chelsea game with Conor Walsh. Conor Walsh is the Academy Director and first team coach at Chicago City FC. And he's also got his own podcast, The Lowdown, which I highly recommend you listen to. I sit down with Conor, talk about the World Club Cup, talk about PSG, talk about Messi, and talk about Chelsea. It's not just the Messi factor why I'm here. I'm also fascinated by PSG. I've done a webinar on them a couple of weeks ago on the Modern Soccer Coach Insider, and I've got another webinar coming up next Monday on the Modern Soccer Coach Insider, looking at PSG in possession principles, some of the takeaways. If you remember a Modern Soccer Coach Insider, you get that for free. If you're not, please register for the Modern Soccer Coach Insider. I'll put the link below. All right, coaches, Messi, Atlanta, Miami, PSG. But first up, me and Conor are going to chat about it. Here we go, enjoy. Conor.
Gary.
Great to see you this morning.
Likewise.
World Club Cup experience. Let's chat. All right, three topics: PSG, Messi, Chelsea. First off, before we roll into PSG, thoughts on the World Club Cup? I feel as if me and you are the only two people excited about it these days.
Yeah, and to be honest, look, there was an awful lot of trepidation about it from the start, and I think the key word there is world, Club World Cup. And to be honest, it's so far, I think overall it's been quite a really, really good, thoughtful experiment by FIFA. Has it delivered consistently and constantly? No, but what we have seen is just this confluence of styles from obviously Europe, South America, here in North America, Africa, Asia, and I think we've got some unbelievable games on the field. And just to see Lumen Field the other day, we were talking about in the car coming here, Inter and River Plate. I mean, you look at Botafogo, Palmeiras, those fans have absolutely travelled in their droves. Boca Juniors lighting up Miami and Nashville, and that's what it's all about. I think there's been quite an awful lot of negative press, and I would say an awful lot of that has been kind of coming from one side of the equation, obviously back at home and Europe and whatnot. And again, you look at these European teams which are obviously driving an awful lot of money towards the tournament, an awful lot of commercial value, and the inferences, of course, after a 55, 60 game season, a lot of these players are last on their heels. But if anything, I think it's kind of leveled the playing field when you have South American teams coming into the mix that are not even halfway through their season. It's led to some really, really good matchups. So for me, it's been a really, really interesting group stage. I'm looking forward to this round of 16, and I think we're all lucky here, Jimmy, myself and yourself, getting to go to two really good games this weekend.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. I didn't think I was going to get excited about this tournament. Got the DAZN package the day of, got it before the first game. And I've enjoyed the diversity of the types of football with that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And I wonder then, I always ask myself, why do I like something? And I wonder then, is the lure of the Premier League. I watch a lot of Premier League football, I watch a lot of international football, and it's quite, not generic, but it's quite similar, style versus style. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's a piece of, if that could engage a few more of that piece of different styles.
Yeah, I take it back to what my football experience was like in a kid, and you look nowadays, there's so few unknowns about the game. Back in the day where it was a kind of a case where you had to discern where you had to scavenge for information. Nowadays, you're kind of discerning amongst it. I remember players like Lucas Podolski in the 06 World Cup having his breakthrough tournament, Andrea Shavin in Euro 2008, and getting moves off that, whereas now there's so few new information, I suppose. So going to this Club World Cup and you're seeing a few, not only breakout stars, but breakout teams, it kind of does add a little bit more to the romanticism of it all. And of course, I mean, it's the same as you and me. We're kind of busy with our own clubs throughout the entirety of the European season, so we don't really get time aside from MLS games to attend, meaningful competitive games. So to have this Club World Cup game, I suppose, close to home and to be able to attend these games, I think it does mean an awful lot. It does bring a little bit more life to the tournament.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd definitely agree. We'll start with Messi. I've actually never done a podcast or never talked about him. You know what's funny, and maybe you have, because you obviously worked at the Barcelona Academy, and he was. I'm going to ask you in a second if he was there at that time. Was he there? Like, is there more conversation? I just think he's been a player that is probably so perfect that you don't really analyse and look at, and you appreciate from a different level standpoint, but you don't really appreciate from that you do a normal footballer. Would you agree with that?
I would wholeheartedly, and I would say, like, it's funny you speak about analysing, because what popped up in my head as you were talking there was he's actually the only player where I've gone to a game of football the 7 or 8 times I've seen him live and analysed him. I've been very fortunate. I've seen him live in the Camp Nou, seen him in Dublin, Belo Horizonte area de Janeiro, seen him in Chicago.
You went to the World Cup 2014,
2019 Copa America.
Oh, you went to that?
2019
wow.
Copa America, so yeah, even more unbridled experience.
Oh, how was that?
Really, really good. And that, I would say, the year of 2019 for me attending live football, I know we've spoken about kind of my experience watching Bielsa's Leeds for the first time, being a kid, a religious one, but in 2019 that was the year I must have attended, I would say, over 80, 90 games of professional football all over the world across 4 different continents, and Copa America was part of that summer. And getting to see, I think we got to see Argentina, Venezuela around the 16, Uruguay, Chile, the game where Suarez came onto the field and kicked a Chilean fan and was absolute bedlam in the stands. Argentina, Paraguay, and then there's one other game that slips my memory. But being so accustomed to going to Ireland games as a kid, or going across the pond to watch Chelsea, watching any sort of English game on the TV, to actually being thwarted out of all of that and just dropped into Brazil and travelling amok with 5 other Irish lads for the month of the Copa America in 2019 it's just something I hadn't experienced before. It was like there was a feeling there. There was just like a completely different perception of the game to what I'd grown up to.
Did you just kind of do that as, listen, 5 of us are going to go and watch as many games?
I think, look, to be honest, I mean, who you kidding? It's a bucket list. You don't get to do too many Copa Americas in one's lifetime, I'd say.
Especially in Brazil. He would be the best player you've ever seen, I'm guessing. He's not the best player I've ever seen, because I haven't seen him yet. I'll see him tomorrow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What jumps out? I mean, let me ask you this. In the 7 times you watched him, were there different things, evolutions in his game? What jumped out at each time or each stage?
It's a funny one, because I thought about this the last time I saw him play against the Fire, just back in April there at Soldier Field, and he has, of course, physically slowed down, but he's even more quicker with the ball now as before as he was without it. And I think the one constant in his game that I constantly see, I hate to watch Messi pitch side. I always kind of go into the upper tiers behind the goals, middle, of the field halfway, and just watching his scanning ability, the ability to go from idea to execution so clean each and every time. You're like, this defender's going to pinch in and nip him here. This fullback's going to anticipate that through ball to Jordi Alba. Each and every time he's anticipating the defender's reaction and he's going off it. It's crazy. What we see in a frame of a second, it's an 1/8, it's a 1/10, it's a 100th of a second, I'd go as far as saying. But no matter where I've been in the world, he's never got a boo, he's never got a negative energy around him. He just draws in these masses. It is as close to as religious experience as you would find watching one player play.
Wow.
And even watching Inter Miami in this Club World Cup, they do play to the tune of Lionel Messi. And obviously, you take Messi out of that team, it's a completely different Inter Miami team, obvious enough to say. But no matter where he's been for the last, I would say, 15 to 17 years, playing at the highest levels, he has each and every team playing to the beat. And you look at the midfield now, a very young, inexperienced midfield with Segovia, Redondo, obviously backed up by the likes of Busquets. But it's a really, really young team, Suarez, Busquets aside. And then you're going from that, going back to his PSG days, where you're looking at midfield 2 with Marco Verratti, and then you're obviously looking at Neymar and Mbappe. Then you go one iteration before, and you're looking at Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets. So wherever he's been, he's managed to get the team playing to the tune of him. So there's something about, we speak about modern day football, it's all gone about, playing through the press, finding a free player, whereas playing into the press, finding a rhythm, dragging all these short horizontal passes, dragging the opponent to them, to then escape and play through that. So for me, yeah, it has to be seen to be believed. It's one thing watching on the TV, it's one thing speaking about him, but to see it live in person, I'm excited. I'm excited for you tomorrow. I'm jealous too.
Yeah, I'm very rarely, and I think this is the kind of analysis or an analyst piece of me. Rarely do I go and get excited by watching individuals today, and that leads you down to like, oh, because they're not as exciting as what they used to be. But I think when you watch football through a collective lens, you appreciate football in a collective lens, and it draws you away from this continuum of individual. And actually, when I was over in England, I went and watched Arsenal, and there was a cheap seat 10 rows up. It was in a fullback winger battle area, and it's one of the best experiences of watching football. And it changed me. I went away thinking, I now need to watch it lower because I need to watch individuals more. And because I hadn't done that in about 10, 15 years, the size and athleticism of the player that I never thought I would really warm to, like the Declan Rices, and you're thinking their ability to get from A to B to compete for a second ball is unbelievable. So I think, yeah, I don't have 7 rows up to watch Messi. That was about $5,000 tomorrow. But I do wonder if, again, not to say we don't appreciate him, I do ask myself all this, like you said 17 years he's been at the highest level. My appreciation's only really come in the last 3 years.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think he was always, I don't know if it was the personality. I do like the personality to be a component of it. And I always felt as if he didn't really know who he was. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Maradona's my idol, and you were well aware of what he was about, rightly or wrongly. And I always felt that, again, the players that impacted me growing up were the 10s who had a little bit of an edge, the Cantonas, he was a 7, but he played in that, Hadjis, even Valderramas, like they were just different. And I think it was the World Cup in Qatar with the Holland, the kind of back and forth they had with Davids and Van Gaal, mm-hmm. and I was thinking, oh yeah, there's definitely an edge there. Have you seen that? You'd be more aware than I was. That edge has always been there. Like, how have you viewed his personality?
I think, again, being well read, kind of reading any book I can get under the sun about Messi and whatnot, and funny enough, speaking to Guillaume Balaguer on my own podcast about it, Messi's always had that edge. He's obviously kind of had that in him, moving to Spain as a youngster, moving there at the age of 12, 13. How could you not be, leaving your family and whatnot? But again, when Guardiola first took the reins, obviously one of his first actions was to get rid of a Ronaldinho, and at the time, people tend to forget Messi, he's a bit of a, I don't know, troublemaker is a bit too much to say, but he wasn't exactly the consummate professional in terms of some of his off-pitch behaviour, namely what he'd do in terms of his rest and his nutrition and whatnot. And there's a few times he'd openly, Guardiola be saying, mind your nutrition and whatnot, and Messi be walking by him on the bus with a can of Coca-Cola, so on and so forth. And then we had the infamous falling out with Luis Enrique, January 2015, away to Real Sociedad, and obviously 4 or 5 months later, again, testament to Luis Enrique's leadership and character, that team turns it around to win a treble. So Messi's always had that bit of an edge in him, and how could you not as a competitor? Someone that's played at the highest level, and someone that's been competing for individual, not only collective trophies, but individual trophies like the Ballon d'Or, namely against the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo for the past best of a decade or so. So for me, he's always had that, and I think that adds into his game. Even you want to look at the Chicago Fire game a few months ago, Carlos Terán, big Colombian centre-back, leaves one on him. Lionel Messi's not focused on the game. He's looking at Carlos Terán for the next 20 minutes, sizing him up, hitting him, chirping him, trying to get one over him. So again, it's a different mindset.
Someone who's, again, a kind of third party who has a connection in that Inter Miami camp as a player told me about 6 months ago that the word on the inside was that he's just the most ruthless trainer. The mentality, that's really interesting. I need to check out that Balaguer book on him. Last piece on him, and then we'll move on. What have you thought about his? You mentioned there about Chicago Fire. What have you thought about his the impact? Obviously, his impact's big on the US landscape. How would you summarise it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it like a hurricane, to be honest. You know, at the start of it, there's always going to be this big furore and big publicity about it, and then kind of after a while it dies down and you're looking at all the dust and residue, and to be honest, there's still a bit of a good vibe about him being here in the league. I mean, how could you not? I mean, again though, watching Messi at the height of his powers compared to now, there is a small little bit of a difference. But what the energy he brings to the league, the name in of itself, for me, again, you look at the people that went and the stakeholders that went into getting this deal done, from everyone at Jorge Mas, David Beckham, Inter Miami as an organisation, MLS, Adidas, obviously Lionel and Everton up. I mean, for the 26 World Cup, and obviously, we don't have to go into the, we don't have to talk deeply about Inter Miami got their place at this year's Club World Cup. But for me, it's kind of everything's been set up in his favour for him to succeed, and the goalposts have been certainly moved as well. What I'm really excited to see is what people aren't talking about at the moment, is he's been given an option to essentially start and purchase a new MLS franchise for a heavily discounted fee, much like the Beckham deal to LA Galaxy in 2007. So what comes of that in these next few years post his playing days, it's going to be quite interesting to see.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. All right, moving on, PSG. Again, something, I feel as if I'm late to the party on PSG. We spoke about this when we were talking last week. I know you've watched them for a number of years under Luis Enrique. It seems to be, again, I don't know if it's recency bias, but it seems to be the next evolution of football at this stage in terms of the verticality of the system, the interchange of the system, the efficiency of the system. How have you made of PSG towards not just the Champions League, of course, but towards that there? Like you said, it was a growth period for them, Will it?
Yeah, I mean, before we focus on the present day, I think there is no current PSG in this guise without, obviously you could look at Nasser Al-Khelaifi and QSI and all that, but Luis Enrique, kind of the character and the temperament of the man to, you know, be so decisive in some of the big decisions he's had to make and he's had to navigate. I don't think there's anyone else that could have done what he's done. I mean, the first season, obviously, you know, the world's worst kept secret. Kylian Mbappe moving to Real Madrid, you have to navigate through that, and he's your club captain at the time. Okay, fair enough. You move on from that. You again get a good pre-season without him in earnest this year. You build, you go young. You signed the likes of Desiree Doué. You have that young, revitalised midfield behind Verratti's gone now. You have the likes of Joe Neves. You have Vitinha spearheading things at the back. Average age of the squad plummets. Then the project is really, really all up in the air come November when they go to the Emirates, and Arsenal beat them 2-0, but by all accounts it's an absolute smashing of a 2-0. PSG leave London, you know, absolutely lucky to have only lost again by a couple of goals, and in the aftermath, Ousmane Dembele gets dropped for lack of professionalism, and he's kicked out of the squad for 4 or 5 weeks before he gets back in. And for me, that was the real turning point, you know, after the French winter break to come back in January, and it's a completely revitalised team. And I think that's when PSG kind of entered the mainstream again as a huge kind of credible footballing force, because within the likes of 3 weeks, Ousmane Dembele's come back into the team. He's playing as a false nine. They signed Kavicha Kvaratskhelia to play on the left. And then later on that week, they go 2-0 down at home to Man City in the Champions League before scoring 4 late second half goals to win that game 4-2. So again, to get to this stage, it wasn't all roses in the garden. And he's had to navigate an awful lot of turmoil. But if you look at the PSG that is now, they just play with so much fluidity, so much dynamism. And the one thing is, having studied Bielsa for a number of years, they're the closest thing I've seen to Bielsa in possession of the ball. We like to speak about zonal football nowadays, positional play, these right-sided rhythms, left-sided rhythms. But typically, Gary, you're only talking about 2, 3, 4 maximum different players. PSG, the one thing we know for certain is, okay, the centre-back and the weak-side full-back is going to stay. Every other position, bar the goalkeeper, is up for grabs. And I think in zonal pressing systems, I think we've gone from, okay, like, again, zonal pressing system, everyone has their role of responsibility, but what happens when you cause so miscommunication when the team, okay, you move to more man-oriented system, but the best man-oriented system, you put them up against PSG now at the moment, it's not going to end well. So, again, credit to them. They only seem to be, you know, finding their peak during this Club World Cup too. He's rotated aside. I mean, they've ended the season strongly, winning the treble, you know, the dismantle of Inter Milan Champions League final. There's been a lot said about these conditions, playing at 12 p.m, especially in the Rose Bowl against Atletico Madrid, and you know, Enrique himself has come out against it. But again, if we were to reflect and watch that game, again, Atleti, I'd say, pretty lucky to have only escaped there with a 4-0 loss too. So they're a team that are certainly hitting their stride. I'm really looking forward to seeing them playing Atlanta tomorrow against Miami. And Gary, I don't think you'd back against them now going all the way.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to win this thing. And again, I feel as if I'm stating the obvious. Luis Enrique is, again, being a 90s football fan myself, and he was always a player that, like, especially at Barcelona. When Barcelona, I remember being really poor. I think it was Van Gaal. He was such a good player. I liked his Spain World Cup team, but I never felt as if I've really understood what he was about. As I mean, you can see, well, such really top coaches have a style and identity that is. What would you say is his?
I would say it's time and space, and the one aspect of his character that I see kind of put through that PSG team is this aggression and this courage. I mean, I put it out to anyone that's watching or listening now. Watch the next time PSG win a free kick in their own defensive half. That ball is back in play straight away. There's a fervour, there's a pace to everything, there's a speed of play to everything. How quick the restarts are, everything is done with intention. But I would say time and space are two huge elements, and obviously coming through the Barca school, coming through, and I mean, coaching Spain as well in that 2022 World Cup. I mean, playing through space and time are two of his key facets, but doing it with this aggression and fearlessness as well. You look at it on average, they're the youngest team in this tournament, even younger than Chelsea. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're the youngest team in this tournament. So to be able to discern his style of play and embed it amongst those footballers, but being able, and you look at football now, Gary, it's not an 11-man sport, it's a 16-man sport with substitutions and the strength they have to come off the bench. So really, there's no real slowdown or letting tempo. We talk about managing the game. If anything, they just turn up the dial and crack the whip.
Watch the documentary. You've probably seen it, and you probably know Spanish. So there's have you seen the 3-part documentary on him? Where it's in Spanish.
I've seen the trailer. I've actually never
I must send it to you. I was watching some of it, and that's how magnetic he is because I'm watching it, and I don't understand any of the language, but I'm watching it. It's got him working out. It's got him walking into the office, like it's an open office, open space. Everything that it's not rocket science, but there's little interesting components of it.
You know, I mean, we'll get into it, I suppose, later on, but you know, we revere these managers that win these trophies and that are, so-called top of the game. But, for me, there'd be little to no difference between a Luis Enrique and a David Moyes if you look in terms of change management and leadership. We speak about tactical as if it's 90% of the game. I think we have the world upside down. I think, that's the 10%. But if you want to look at the top 10 percentile of any industry, what it tends to be, it's your leadership skills, it's your personal skills, your ability to lead and navigate. For me, the job Moyes did at Everton this season was absolutely incredible, lifting them from the depths of despair at the bottom of the table. But Luis Enrique, what he's been able to do over countless generations of player, as a player himself and as a coach, leading and influencing others, leading a huge backroom staff, being able to manage up to QSI, Nasser Khalifi ain't easy either. We have to remember that too. Being able to manage the board at Barcelona when he was there, being able to carry the whole hopes of a nation. So the way he's able to just be unapologetically as himself and go about his day-to-day business with such conviction, for me, that's football aside, like, leave the X's and O's on the field, that's what stands out to me about him. And I mean, we spoke about in the car with Jimmy on the way here too. That's what gives football such flavour. You see people that are such unapologetically themselves. You mightn't all the time understand it or like the style of play, but you have to respect it.
I definitely think that's something that is, as the game becomes a little bit more generic in terms of, and it's not a criticism that it's generic as in like always, it's just I think a consequence of the commercialization of football. And it's obviously going to be commercialized because it's the biggest selling sport in the world. So I think it's fair to say that you're going to get things packaged in a certain way. And I think the way society is today, with people being really, really image conscious, you know, you mentioned there about like that's a hot take. Oh, David Moyes, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. There, that Moyes and Luis Enrique are probably around the same caliber of management. But what's funny is that in that there's a clip of him taking a session in PSG, and he's taking a session in bare feet. Where he's walking. I think Wenger used to do it as well. There's a spiritual side, and you're close to the ground, and all that there good stuff. And he's taking the session and that, and he stops the session. Imagine stopping a session when you're wearing bare feet. And you're like, but if David Moyes had done that, the media portrayal of that, like it would be the front of every, wouldn't it? But Moyes can't afford a pair of boots and stuff like that there.
On your next coaching course.
Yeah, you're just shocked. But it's interesting. All right, last piece, Chelsea. So we're going to watch Chelsea today. You're a Chelsea fan. Again, it's a team that I actually watched them. I went to the Liverpool game just at the end of the season where they won 2-1. They were really, really impressive. How would you summarise, what would you expect from this Chelsea?
Look, I think he's done an absolutely incredible job against someone we've spoke ad nauseum about. I mean, to find someone nowadays to go into that job with such humility, but still an unbelievable track record, but just wanting to coach, being able to work within the constraints and the hand he's been dealt with. Obviously, I mean, there's no depth of talent at his disposal, or you look, he has a depth of talent at his disposal, but being able to achieve top 4 this season, win a trophy and leading them into this Club World Cup, I think he's done a terrific job. It really, really is, I would say, modern football, kind of what Chelsea are trying to do at the moment. You know, inverting Cucurella, sometimes he plays as a 6, other times he plays as a 10. We've seen it on the other side down with Malo Gusto playing as a 6 at times, Reece James coming into the 6. So again, how they set up their box, the box dynamics are really, really key as well. I think Nicholas Jackson cops an awful lot of flack. If you look at his goal record, okay, maybe we can argue, but what he gives to the side coming off the front and linking the play with the likes of Palmer, likes of Enzo, I think he just gives a completely different dynamic to what's there. The lap, I've been excited by these last few games, seeing him live in person against LAFC caused them no end of problems at all. But again, I'm really excited as a fan, honestly, for the next few years with this Chelsea team. I said to a member of Chelsea staff recently at the LFC game, with no disrespect to the current ownership or current regime, watching Chelsea defend for their lives against Nottingham Forest on the final day gave me a lot of hope and enthusiasm for the future. It reminded me of Mourinho's Chelsea, reminded me of the older days, just grinding out results. And to be honest, as a Chelsea fan, we are spoilt. We grew up in the Roman Abramovich and Mourinho years, you know, winning countless Champions Leagues, Premier Leagues, domestic cups and whatnot. And it's just it's the same football club, but it's a different ownership. It's a different way of doing things, which you have to respect too. And I think I'm really excited. I've seen growth through the Pochettino season. I've seen a lot of growth this year. I think there's still another 2, maybe 3 years away from really sincerely competing for a title. But if you're looking at the likes of Levi Colwill, the likes of Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer, you can keep them together for the next 3-4 years. You know, moving into their peak years, you have a serious chance of doing business at the highest of levels.
Brilliant. Cole Palmer surprised me when I watched him live. Again, I went, it was the day after that Arsenal experience, so like, thankfully Liverpool won the league, so there's a few cheap seats knocking around. I picked one up. But seeing Cole Palmer up close, big, like in terms of tall, yeah, he's what, 6'2" maybe? Definitely 6 foot.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Lean,
yeah,
right? So doesn't look as if he's, but again, you're talking speed on the ball. You're talking there about Messi moving with pace at the ball. How would you say that type of profile is then, Cole Palmer?
I wouldn't say he's one of one, but he's extremely rare to find a player like Cole Palmer. To be honest, Tijjani Reinders just somewhat similar for Man City now, but the way he's able to slow down to speed up in such close quarters is absolutely like breathtaking. And then an absolute wand of a left foot, but his vision, and then just a variety of technique, especially on that left foot he has, it's just absolutely magnetic to watch at times. It just pulls you in, like he does with a defender, right? Just pulls you in, creates space around. But again, Palmer's just one of those, you know, no matter where he receives the ball in the pitch, you're thinking, danger. You look at the start of the season, Newcastle game, he's receiving the ball square to 6, defender on his back, square touch to the side, he's played Pedro Neto through for the Jackson goal. So anywhere in the pitch, he's just an absolute threat. You can never take your eye off him. And the thing is, you go man-to-man with him, you create space for someone else. You don't go man-to-man, you sit off and let him drop deeper and deeper in these wide areas. He's more than able to create. But yeah, going back to your original question there, Gary, I don't really see that much of a profile of player. But again, watching interviews with him, listening to his dad speak about his development, I think he got a late growth spurt when he was 16, 17, 18. So he's always a little bit smaller on the jinkier side. So you can tell like the countless thousands of hours he put into his development as a young player has paid off. But yeah, look, as a fan, as a coach, he's an absolute joy to watch.
It's fascinating. Again, the personality, I always like, you know, again, just when you see a player and you kind of look at the backstory. I have seen clips of this personality that he doesn't really play the media game and he doesn't really, you know, put his media face on. He is what he is, and sometimes that's part of the draw with like, but then it looks as if he's really laid back. It looks as if he's just a normal kid. But then I did see the clip. I saw a clip of England at 16s where he does look underdeveloped, and from going through that growth spurt and growing into a player that you would have to break through at that level, even though the City component of it, you go City, Chelsea to break through at that level, the mentality you would need and the character, the strength of character you would need about that there would be serious, right?
Yeah, I think it's not isolated either. I think you look at Palmer again, the strength, unbelievable. The likes of Joe Shields to bring him in, Chelsea ownership, Pochettino to create, I would say, a safe space from last season. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Palmer, if that's his first move away from City, and if Pochettino is a manager, I don't know if he goes on to have the same season. But then again, you're looking at the development of other players, and then it's hit and miss. So, you know, there's so many variables at play, but to have that strength of character is absolutely fascinating. And to touch upon something that you brought up earlier on, is there too much copy and paste in kind of youth academies in football? We put so much onus today on ourselves as coaches to find solutions, and everything becomes so generic, where it's like, you know, you hear Palmer speaking about these outer-worldly passes he's playing to players and not able to describe and explain it. That's okay too. That's fine. He's playing with a sixth sense. He's playing intuition. You trust me. He's practiced that past thousands, tens of thousands of times before. And I think that's the element we need to get back to. I mean, just this concept of free play. I mean, we speak about playing on the streets. Obviously, we see the likes of Liverpool and several other academies, you know, bringing back the likes of cage football and whatnot. But yeah, I'm not as scared as I was before on what the next generation is going to look like, just by privy of going to all sorts of playoffs, watching this UEFA Youth League, going to the MLS Next playoffs recently in Nashville. I still think we do have a diversified player pool coming through overall, but at the same time, we just have to be a little bit careful that, you know, never judge a book by its cover. And I think football is healthy for having Cole Palmer in it. And again, credit to the managers, credit to the coaches for his development, but credit to the managers, you know, that put a web around him, wrapped him in cotton wool, and sure he got to this level, because I'm sure you're more aware than me of the amount of players that unfortunately didn't make it through.
Yeah, I went, when I came back, is the last one for you, when I came back from England and I was talking to a couple of people about, again, going to visiting a few places, and then it was good that I didn't plan it this way, but I finished the weekend up by watching 2 big games and seeing players up close. And what I described them was the physicality of these players is quite scary, what they're capable of doing. But then when you explain that to, in our culture of North America, that sounds as if what you're saying is like, okay, Cole Palmer's in the gym and he's doing this here and that. But then I had to say, there was only one player that looked, in that Liverpool versus Chelsea game, there was only one player that looked that they were in the gym, and that was Virgil van Dijk. Everyone else looked a different profile of player. And I don't want to start a whole gym versus non-gym profile, but when you're looking at that footballer, and then you said they're street footballer, there's obviously, and the growth spurt with a football component to it. In your experiences in North America, is that something that we're kind of overlooking a little bit?
I would think so. I think a substantiated fear at the moment, again, I'm far from qualified to speak about this matter, but from just my own experience and speaking to countless others about it, is at the moment we've kind of lost the balance between the numbers of trainings to the number of games. And essentially you're looking at youth football over here. We're getting down this road of playing 11 to 12 months of competitive football throughout the year with all these different platforms in competition with each other. So short answer, yes. Long answer as to where you go to fix it in today's climate, especially over in this part of the world, which both you and I are very fortunate and privileged to be a part of. I don't even know where you begin.
Yeah. Great way to finish it. Okay, predictions today. The game will be over and put this out Monday morning, so both games will be over. So we're going to go watch Chelsea, Benfica this afternoon. Then we're going to get in the car and we're going to go watch the game tomorrow, in Atlanta. Chelsea, Benfica, go on.
Chelsea, Benfica. Chelsea win after extra time. I think the heat will play a huge factor today. I don't have enough sunscreen to do extra time. Yeah, look, I checked the weather back in Chicago. I have a bloody rain jacket with me. So yeah, I don't know who's the bigger fool, you or me.
1-0 or?
I 2-1 Chelsea after extra time, and then PSG tomorrow will win by 2+ goals.
I agree. I think PSG are going to take care of it.
Let's say 3-1 tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. I think PSG are going to quite comfortable tomorrow. I think Benfica are going to win today.
And who's your prediction to win overall?
Bayern. I said PSG about 30 minutes ago. I said, I think they'll win too. I think Bayern will win. Not that good. I was supposed to be ending this, but I didn't watch the game in Charlotte because of the heat. I didn't go to the game. I didn't make the drive. But from seeing their system and how efficient they are with their movement, and I think they've got the ability to control a game. With I was really impressed. Again, I feel as if I'm coming to the party late with a lot of these teams, which is a good thing because I need to watch a little bit more of them. But Bayern, I think I've gone, God, that's a serious system.
It's probably not going to like me because I'm a Chelsea fan and they're our side of the bracket, but Man City. I think there's something really intentional about the 4 players they've brought in. Those 4 players have all played a huge role in each of the 3 group stage games, and I think they have a lot more in them, and they're on the easier side of the draw. Aside from Chelsea, of course, but I think you look at PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, all on one side of the bracket. I think there's something for winning those big games, but just have that little bit of freshness where it matters most. I think Man City could go all the way to the MetLife, July 13th, and win it.
Brilliant. Well, if they do, I'll put that up and say predicted it.
Please do.
All right, we're going to take a break now, and then we're going to do a podcast with you. So if you're listening to this and you've enjoyed Conor's expertise, we're going to do another podcast which we'll put out in 10 to 14 days. Brilliant.
Fantastic.
All right,
Thanks
part 1.
much, Gary.
Loved it.
Thank you.